Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Karen Rice, missing you so much, and how wonderful it is to know that I can feel you in my heart. That love is something so much greater than anything we could understand or explain or define, and I think that's what I'd like to talk about this morning. But before I jump into the material, let me just take a moment to bless this space, to just know that right where we are, wherever that may be, God is. And therefore, right in that sacred space, just as if God has marked an X on a map and we're exactly where we are destined to be, divinely designed to be in this moment, right where we are, is that infinite presence of love. I dedicate this morning to that love. Give thanks for all that's about to happen. I let it be and release it into that divine law that brings all things into form. And so it is. Well, that's pretty much what I want to talk about today. I have a conversation planned for us that revolves around this idea of love and what love is. The title of my message is All This and More. And I've had this idea brewing for a little while that, ministers are always looking for opportunities to talk about spiritual ideas. And as I played with this talk title, the theme, I just kept thinking about all the ways in which we live in our human body in this finite form. And those of us who are spiritually committed to and sort of dedicated to being aware of the spiritual truth of our lives, we are keenly aware that we are both human and divine at the same time. And I want to speak to that today in such a way that I'm desiring for us to draw compassion for ourselves through that experience of oneness. So in some ways, I'm speaking today about the idea of sort of the poetic nature of the I am. And in a larger way, I'm really speaking all morning about everything we know and to have some kind of an openness to everything that lies beyond what we're able to know and understand in an intellectual way, but absolutely is. And one of the things that excited me in my preparation for talking to you this morning is a quotation that actually a paraphrased affirmation that I've taken from this book, my favorite. Many of us have a favorite. This thing called You, and mine is an older hardback copy. They also now have it in paperback. You might have it on Kindle. And what I'm going to tell you is, it's in the last 12 to 15 pages of the book, no matter what copy you're looking at. You're going to be able to find where I'm reading from. I'm actually reading from page 141 in mine. I noticed in the little blue book it's 161, and that's probably the copy most people have. But I wanted to read to you from this book because we talk about it all the time, but I want you to have a taste of the actual pure beauty that reflects the consciousness Dr. Ernest Holmes must have just been, resonating in for some time when he put these words to paper. I use this book for, it's so useful if I'm moving through a difficult challenge. It's like you can open this book almost anywhere and find guidance. So I highly recommend the book, but I want you to have a taste of how beautiful it is this morning. So let me read to you. It's a little unusual. I actually want to read to you from the book, which I don't normally do. But listen to how clever he puts us in our spiritual place. Did you ever stop to realize that peace must actually exist at the center of everything? And if you ask yourself why, answer your own questions, because in the long run, you will have to do this anyway. We all have to answer our own questions. No one can answer questions for you but yourself. because your very nature has willed it so. Peace must exist at the center of everything, or this universe itself would be a chaos. And you already know this, and you already believe this. Now you are going to act upon it. You are not only going to believe in it, you are going to act as though it were true, because it is true. There is peace at the center of your being, a peace that can be felt throughout the day and in the cool of the evening, when you have turned from your labor and you look to the sky and the first star shines in the soft light of the sky. That star broods over the earth quietly, tenderly, as a mother watches over her child. And so get that feeling, he says, and then say these words. In this peace that holds me so gently, I find strength and protection from all fear or anxiety. It is the peace of God in which I feel the love of a holy presence. I am so conscious of this love, this protection, that every sense of fear slips away from me as a mist fades away from the morning. I see good in everything, God personified in all people, and life manifest in every event. When I attended the first Science of Mind church that I called home was in Covina, California, and in the early 90s, when I rooted myself in that environment, they had an affirmation that we said every day out loud at the beginning of the service. And it came from that page, from that affirmation that I just read. And so I want to read it to you. I'd love it if we would all learn it and use it in this way, in an abbreviated form. And I'm going to say it more than once today, so you're going to start to get used to hearing it. In the peace of God, I feel the love of a holy presence. In this consciousness of love, all sense of fear slips away, and I see good in everything, God personified in all people, and life manifest in every event. What a luscious way to begin every day, to anchor ourselves in that space of knowing that in the peace of God, that peace that abides within us, that when we find that place of peace, we then can sense the love of a holy presence right there with us. That is the indwelling presence of God. That is the I am. And it is interesting that we live in this paradoxical life of being a physical, finite body with this spiritual, infinite knowing of how massive life is and how incredibly powerful spirit is, and that which created all of life. There's so much of it that we cannot actually comprehend it from an intellectual place. So we need to call back on words like this. This is why poetry and beautiful music and great works of art, they are just other ways that spirit speaks to us and stirs within us a sense of the divine, so that we're able to recognize it then before us. And even more than that, it's about the way we can then open up to allow that vibrancy of spirit itself to express through and as us. And so there's something intellectually that we will never understand about infinity, and yet I'm very clear that at least in this community, we have a pretty solid grasp on the idea that we're having a human journey as spiritual beings, and that we just open ourselves to the bigness of God, of love, the vastness of the presence of love, and the godness of life. It's helpful for us to remember that love desires to express through our lives always. and in all ways. And that it's not that it comes and it goes, it's that our awareness shifts because we have to put our attention on the things of living, just the little very, very pieces of taking care of our physical experience and sustaining ourselves with a proper input and output of information and nutrients and all of that thing in the great cycle of life, all of that. And so you might say that when things don't go well in our lives, when we have something erupt in our personal experiences, it's tempting to believe that we have that we're not using spiritual principle in a proper way, that we have been sidetracked. And I would say that yes, indeed, our awareness shifts, but it's not that we've done anything wrong. It's that it's just a part of living. I was sitting down to prepare for the message this morning, and I whacked my elbow on the table as I was trying to readjust my position, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is such a perfect illustration of what I'm talking about today. It's like I'm getting myself grounded, and I whack my elbow, and now suddenly I'm really in my body, right? And it doesn't mean that you're not still spiritual. It just means something else has grabbed your attention. And as we begin to look at it that way, we can see that there's some wisdom in understanding the process of sort of what feels like walking between worlds, but is really the privilege of being given the gift of heaven on earth. There's something magnificent in knowing that heavenly experiences happen on this beautiful, gorgeous, material planet of earth and clay and all this stuff of which we are all created of and from. So I can be in a really good mood and be well prayed up and maybe get a piece of bad news that then impacts my mood, so I'm not feeling that same vibration of joy. And that's just a part of the peaks and valleys and the mountains of this experience that we call life. Even when we meditate, I was thinking about this morning, that even as I sit, I love to meditate with my feet curled up. I do it in a chair now. I used to get down on the floor and do it. It's just easier to get up from the chair now. But I find a chair where I can still pull my legs up into my lap, because that's how I learned to meditate, and that's what gets me in my zone quickly. And I was thinking that even sometimes when I'm having this glorious, deep meditation practice, I will begin to be aware that maybe I have a foot that's gone to sleep. And then there's this physical tingling, and it's just our body talking to us. Like, you've been sitting still in this position for a long time. And so there's a way in which we ebb and flow with the movements of all the things that are physical without denying the spirituality in any way. It never means you've done something wrong. It always means it's just a piece of life getting our attention. We're shifting our awareness. And I think that's the great gift, is to learn to shift your awareness, to be very flexible in our ability to shift our awareness from this to that. So just continue remembering how great you are, how great we are, how wonderfully we are created, how miraculously we are created. And there's always so much more going on. And I think that so much more has to do with the way this life is given us, so that we continue doing the work and then continue to grow or expand our consciousness. Life is a transformative experience, isn't it? So do this with me. Take a breath. And now just feel how that starts to change everything in your body. And if it feels comfortable, close your eyes and take another breath. And then just notice how your shoulders were a little too high, and as you relax, they naturally drop. Your breathing rhythm slows down. And from this comfortable space, we remember that we are truly created in the image and the likeness of Spirit. The pure Spirit abides at the center of our being. The peace, a peace that passes our human understanding, that peace is a holy presence of love. And so just feel that love right now. Feel that love radiating, moving through you. And know this is who you are. So take a breath and open your eyes again. And become aware, notice now in this awareness of the difference between listening and the intellectual work of the mind and moving into that place of seeking to tap into that peace and that holy presence of love within us, that it is in that place that all sense of fear slips away. Because fear and love cannot abide in that same space in terms of our consciousness. We're always choosing, but we can always choose again. So it's a great freedom. It's a great gift that God has given us, inborn in who we are. Reminds us that all is well. In that same place in the book, this thing called You, Dr. Holmes used these words. This is such a perfect quote for this topic. In the presence of love, every heart opens, every breath deepens, and every mind is flooded with peace. See, that's what we just experienced. We just went into that place. And so that reminds me of this gorgeous way. There's a quote that I like to remember every now and then from A Course in Miracles, actually from one of the meditative practices, that says that stop right now and take a minute. For 1 minute, just turn within, get silent, and in that space of silence, in your inhale and your exhale, in your holy place of recognizing the presence of love within you, 1,000 minds are touched. 1,000 minds are healed. It gives me this image of the great way when I calm myself, when I turn to center, that there's this great ripple, this beautiful impact that stretches out in all directions, above and below, behind and in front, all around the globe. I love that vision, that when I calm myself for 1 minute, when I sit still, 1,000 minds are touched and healed by my act, my conscious act of being still. And so we're looking at this in such a simple form, and yet I do want to say I recognize these are very complex ideas that we are simplifying. And the purpose of simplifying them is to access them, to realize this is not a big task. And for me, that often starts with remembering that this is not punishing myself. This is a great gift of renewal, to really stop, feel the peace, to return to that essence of love, and to recognize that a single breath, one pause in the day, anytime, anywhere, and you can do it more than one time, but a single cleansing breath, science tells us, changes the entire chemistry in our physical bodies in profound ways. I mean, I just notice I clear my mind quickly with a single breath. It's almost like it takes out the cobwebs and it puts me in a different place of perception, a different readiness in how I want to direct my own awareness again. So we can do this. I can do this, and you can do this. And we are benefiting ourselves, but we are in a ripple effect benefiting all of humankind when we stop to allow these divine qualities to express through us. It is the very reason we have desires in our lives, right? So a desire at first, when we're early in this path, and it looks like it's just another thing you want. But the whole point of focusing spiritually, hunkering down and looking at the desires is to recognize they are not, this is not wanting. This is acknowledging an innate desire within you that is God-given, and it will never be satisfied by acquiring more stuff. So the idea of the divine desire wanting to express through you, wanting to be present on this planet, love, peace, order, beauty, power, all of the divine qualities, that those desires appear to be at first things that seem to be missing in your life. But as we align ourselves back to truth, we recognize that we do not live in a limited universe, that we live in a universe where everything is available in an inexhaustible supply. And all we have to do is open ourselves to call it in. And more than that, we have to be willing to express it. So it seems like it's receiving, but if I want to express love on this planet, I have to allow myself to recognize the presence of love right where I am, and then I'm able to be more loving in my relationships and in all ways. Dr. Roger Teal recently retired as the longtime senior minister in Mile High, Denver, Colorado. He was there almost 30 years, and Fred Vogt preceded him. That church has been around a long time. It's considered one of our mega churches in New Thought. Roger Teal authored a book a few years ago, This Life is Joy. Beautiful book with a very different take on joy. And it really just hits home for me. It speaks the way I think it's like the words I'm always trying to say, and he says it in a slightly different way that then adds a little oomph for me. So he's speaking in this book about the way that when we suffer, that there's a call there to notice, to ask ourselves, are we living on purpose? That it seems that at times when there's suffering going on in our lives, we've bought into some of the illusions or the stories we tell around that suffering. And that the reality is, when that's happening, what that means is we have bought into fear. You know, if you're looking at the illusion, if you're running wild with the story, you've bought into some fear there. And what he does so beautifully is he puts a twist on it in a way I have never heard. Listen to his words on this topic. Fear is your friend, not a foe, because it serves as a reminder that we are being run by our intellect instead of our heart. This is so important to think about. It's in our intellect that we run away in the storyline of fear. But when we pull back into peace, into truth, into love, we now are letting go of the illusion. We are connecting with our source. The illusion separates us from truth. It separates our awareness from the presence of God. And then we have a different energetic that we're moving through life on. So, but it's not a bad thing. We have to begin by saying, fear is not a foe. Fear is my friend. And so please know, it is absolutely natural for us to feel bombarded when scary things are happening in the world, because they grab our attention. And remember, you are human and divine. So we have to find some way to acknowledge the discordance in the world so that we can then return to love. Because here's the bottom line. When we are aligned to truth, to love, we in that moment know the power of love, not in an intellectual way, but we know it, we embody it, and there is great power in love. It is the greatest force in the universe. And in that place and space then, we can allow our fear, acknowledge it, we can allow it to bring us home to love, to that power and we can then become powerful again in our own way. That's how we use fear. Remember that Holmes always said, there is a power in this universe. It is a power for good. It is greater than I am, and I can use it. We can use it. And so now I'm asking you to take that next step out and see that when you see fear, when you can recognize that you're concerned over what's going on in the world, we can use it to bring us home back to love again. We use truth. We're in a condition, and we use truth to condition our mind in a spiritual way to bring us back to truth again. So it reminds me very much of a powerful quotation from the Course in Miracles, but one that has changed my life. When you are afraid, it is a sure sign you are trusting in your own strength. Yeah, feel that. When you're afraid, when I'm afraid, it is always when I am trying to hold things in place or fix things or make them better or keep everybody happy. When you are afraid, it is a sure sign. You're thinking it's up to you to fix everything. You think it's your strength. It's not. There's a power greater than we are, and we can use it at all times. So we're having this experience, this pandemic experience, and here's what we know, and here's what I can freely tell you. Germs are real, right? The virus is real. It's not an illusion. That you can see it under, I don't know, is it a microscope, or do you need something stronger than a microscope? I don't know. There's a nurse in the crowd today. Anyhow, you can see it. They've given us an image of what it looks like, so much so that I'm seeing it used in as an icon to remind us. And, it has a specific shape, so we know that it exists. It's a fact. It's not a divine truth, but it's not like it's not real. It exists. Now, because it's in the news and we're researching it and we're studying and wanting to know where are the numbers at all the time, we're immersed in the idea of it. And what happens then is we're creating an atmosphere of feeling susceptible to something that we don't have any power over. Right? So let's just say there's a vulnerability in it. And even if you don't relate to anything I'm saying about this morning, because I know that, I know you have, like Holmes said in the beginning, you have to do it your way. But even if you're not impacted in a way that you recognize as fear, what I want to tell you is you are surrounded by the consciousness of the fear of the rest of the population. Because the biggest consensus of humanity right now is very bombarded in this fear-based concern of this susceptibility of things that scare us. So let's find a way to throw that power of love in a great mix of all of our vulnerability so that we don't have to guard our hearts. We have behaviors we have had to adapt to now in the distancing and the mask wearing, but that doesn't mean that we're guarding our hearts. And I really want to plant that seed this morning to keep your heart open. And when we're afraid, we close off. We then are using some kind of an interior protective shield to try and stay in our own safe space. And we won't heal. We aren't able to spread love then. When we rest in the peace of God and recognize the holy presence of love, all sense of fear slips away.
That's right.
And then 1 minute of peace will ripple out and heal 1,000 other minds. So illness is a way that we often speak to this. Illness is the way that we're called back to our center, to see where we've been thinking differently. Dr. Teal said it this way in his book. He said that the body is an energy system that is impacted by the quality of our consciousness. But the body is showing you where your awareness has been. So yes, we're thinking about you can't help, you cannot avoid it, right? We're thinking, we're bombarded and surrounded by thoughts that have fear in them, and those thoughts, as you recognize them, can take you right back to your center, where fear slips away, and you can become that great instrument of love. I just love that whole theory of that idea. So another way of looking at it, if you take his words, another way of looking at it would be to say that it's a call to get out of your head and back into your heart. Maybe that's simpler and more godly than trying to think of it in terms of the effect. Okay, so use whatever you need, but I would say if you combine the two, it might be a call to love your body. We need to keep loving our bodies in spite of all of it. Listen to these positive words from Dr. Teal. We need to recognize that disease and other challenges. Now remember, disease is familiar to us right now, dis-ease in the universe in all kinds of ways. But that all the other challenges lumped together, whatever might be going on in your life or the lives of your loved ones or the things you notice you worry about, we need to recognize that disease and all other challenges are not stop signs. They are green lights for healing. They are green lights for healing and breakthroughs and tremendous leaps forward. So use them. Use your awareness. Anything that seems to be out of order is a call for love. Begin to learn that we really are a tiny little part of something so much more, and that we also are so much more than we have imagined. Everything in the world becomes a call for love. And not for you to tell people how to love. I made that mistake this week. I got sucked into a Facebook comment where I didn't see much love, and so I put my 2 cents in, and everybody went crazy. And it saddened my heart to see that I was trying to speak of love, and it just provoked people. It, of course, was about bikers, but I'm not going to bring it up anymore, because what I realized is no matter how much I try and talk to you about love, I can't teach you what love is. It's a very personal journey. So I invite you to pay attention to your personal journey this week, to open your heart in a way like you have never done before, to be magnificent in the way you say yes to life, because when we say yes to life, we are saying yes to belonging. To be longing in the same way that we are longing to allow God to express love through us. Let's be great vessels this day, and let us know that in the peace of God, I feel the love of a holy presence. And in this consciousness of love, all sense of fear slips away, and I can see good in everything. I can see God personified in all people and life manifest in every event. Yes, in the peace of God, I feel the love of a holy presence. So just breathe that in. And once again, I invite you to shift your energy and close your eyes if that's comfortable. And to just recognize it's true. Right where you are, God is. Right in this sacred space we created in the words of prayer is this sanctuary where we join together. Even as we hear this message at different times, we are called together in this moment of oneness, in this universal and profound way to awaken that love within us that divine call that is stirring within us for belonging in the way that we are longing to just allow that peace of God to be our reality, and that expression of love to be that truth of the way we allow the holy presence of God to use us and express through us. So in this moment where the world continues to move through divisiveness, through different attitudes, in this strange time where the left is bumping into the right and the right is bumping into the left, but they're meeting at the bottom and crossing over to each other's sides and they don't even know it, in that way in which it is complex, and yet the simplicity of the perfect love of God is the light in which we live and move and have our being. So I speak my word this day, that there is no limitation in this universe, that we are given all that we need, that we experience heaven on earth in our simple awareness, in our waking up, in our feeling the peace of God that passes all our human understanding and allows us to stand in love and to let fear slip away, so that we are blessed and that we become that blessing, that beautiful ripple of love and kindness and goodness and health and wholeness and vibrancy and vitality. And as we sense all of that awakening within the fibers of our being, we are healing our very physical bodies. And as we hold that sense of love and that truth and the power of these healing words, we know that then that healing ripples out, so that there is a change, a transformation in the people around us, in the people in our communities, in the people in our lives, our family and loved ones, and that we are a part of a great healing and transformational process on this planet. And so that I know as we open ourselves to receive this grace, to receive this good, that it rushes into our lives, that it stirs that inner fire of the indwelling presence, and we recognize with this crisp and new clarity that here is God. God is, I am, and therefore life is good. So I say thank you, God. Thank you, infinite presence. How grateful we are to know indeed that this is how life works. And as I just allow the thrill of these words, the quickening within my being, as I allow it to move and spread, I allow it to just be the part of release, where I know that these words move into that place where we let go and let God, and it becomes manifested in our lives as the truth we live. Thank you, God. I let it be. And together we say, and so it is. Well, I am happy to share my donation this morning, and Reverend Clyde is going to run outside if you'd like to drive by and drop your donation in person in the offering plate we'll be receiving. And thank you so much for the way that you've been mailing in using the donate button. We have a donate button on the website, wvcsl.com, and as soon as that page comes up and you get through the introductory stuff that says we're not actually meeting now, then look on the right side. There are a couple of buttons. One's a donate button, so you can do that right online, or you can make an agreement with your bank, or you can use Easy Tithe. There are lots of ways to give. We are so grateful to continue to have our doors open and to be able to provide services such as this. Also on that same webpage, you will find a Zoom tutorial, and it's found under the church chat. It's we played with it this morning. It's the very bottom button. It's a green one, and you press on that, and that will show you how to get around on Zoom. And I would like you to be practicing, because I'm about to rev up and offer you a class called What the Hell. It's going to be a sort of a mini class based on the foundation material to refresh our minds on prayer and these tools, these spiritual tools that we already have. I'll be announcing the date of that class very soon. And it'll be good for any of those reasons you go through, scratching your head going, huh, what? We know what. It'll be a quicker channel to get us restored to our truth again. Don't forget Wednesday nights with Clyde, Thursday nights with the ministers, very casual. I love you. Lots to do. Stay connected. By the way, big events coming. We are actually planning a concert. It'll be outdoors. It looks like we'll be having an outdoor concert in the fall with the Bradfords. So stay tuned for more information. I love you very much. Have a blessed week.